Everything they've built will fall! And from the ashes of their world, we'll build a better one!
This is the biggest X-Men movie we've ever made in terms of the scale, the stakes, the threat to the world. We've never really had global stakes in the way that we do in this film.
The team that we're all working with now is the same team that's been together going back almost, with rare exception, to X2 and some to X1. So it's a very tight-knit group.
Whenever you guys get picked up, try to stay frozen. You know, react to however you're picked up, but then don't move around. After you're picked up, you're frozen.
Second unit director is Smrz, absolutely top in his field. Has proved it again and again and again.
I try to use as much as I can real, and then supplement it with CG. Just try to use the best of both worlds.
Reset the playback to the first position, and then we'll have Renee go to the first position.
I have very high standards in visual effects and how they interface with reality and how they must look real and feel real. And I like working with perfectionists in this particular realm. John Dykstra is probably one of two legends in visual effects. He did the original Star Wars, and he is kept current with all the major visual effects techniques, and he too is a perfectionist.
I think that the thing that separates the X-Men movies from the other movies is character. It's all about these characters and their own personal struggles with who they are and their worth. So with the visual effects, there's a lot of subtlety, a lot of interpretation, a lot of choreography helps contribute to the story.
We all fell in love with Quicksilver in the last film, and we wanted to find a way to take his powers, his use of them, and that set piece further.
It was really sort of nerve-wracking to think about doing it again and trying to do it better and top yourself, and how do you do that?
I'm not trying to compete with the kitchen sequence, but I am trying to compete with the kitchen sequence.
This time around, the mansion is blown up, and Quicksilver arrives just as the mansion starts to explode. So we have a super slow-motion explosion as it rips through the house and destroys the entire mansion.
We then shift into Quicksilver time, and we see him go about saving everyone in the mansion, but as it is slowly exploding.
It gave us an opportunity to see that sort of high-speed photography version of what an explosion would look like in Quicksilver time. So that was actually the most complex sequence in the movie, both in terms of shooting it and complex in terms of the CG, the visual effects.
That sequence was very, very carefully pre-visualized. Brian Smrz and Matt Sloan, who was the on-set supervisor for the second unit stuff, basically took that roadmap.
This is Quicksilver on steroids, much bigger. I think we're about 2.5 minutes sequence. In Days of Future Past, it was 32 seconds.
You're inside the mansion and inside the library and out on the lawn and over at the swimming pool, and you're flinging people in all these different places, getting them clear of this big explosion, all within a 1 second or less time frame.
It's quite elaborate. It took 1.5 months to shoot. Evan Peters worked 17 days on this one sequence alone.
We'll shoot the first one of you guys just frozen, and then we'll have Quicksilver come in and extract you.
Almost every shot is a motion control shot. So if Quicksilver is in the same shot in different places in the room, we'll put Evan Peters in these 6 places saving these 6 kids, and you have to repeat the move and make sure the timing's right, that he's in the right spot at the right time so that it's one fluid, continuous shot. You could do that very easily if you had a locked-off camera, but with the camera movement, it just makes it much more dynamic.
The shot where it's really close up in my face, almost like a fisheye lens, is me with a huge rig on the camera and weights on the back to balance it, just going like this. Just running like this, trying to make it look like I'm running.
We use the Phantom for the slow motion. The Phantom camera runs 3,000 frames per second, so we would use that when we did explosions.
Nicely done!
It's great when they actually blow stuff up. So much of these movies are CGI, so it's really a treat when they're actually blowing something up.
Today's kind of an exciting day for us. We're going to do a multi-stage explosion with a 3,200 frame per second camera, traveling at roughly 55 feet a second, which means I have 2/5 of a second to get in the hero part of the explosion.
Here we go, and 3, 2, 1, go.
We're hoping to move our camera at close to 90 miles per hour as it goes through the explosion. And we have a few tens of milliseconds in which we're safe. So the camera has to be shielded. We have to be careful about debris.
You see this huge fireball coming down the hallway and exploding out of all the bookshelves and the like. It's pretty amazing.
3, 2, 1, go.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Great job, guys.
And then multiple layers of visual effects, getting the debris, getting the books. The exploding aquarium is completely visual effects because we had to art direct where the fish ended up, where the water goes.
Hey guys, Evan's going up on the balustrade. Let's stand by to shoot. Everybody start clearing.
Colin Fallenweider, who's doubling Quicksilver, is one of the best people in the world, in my opinion, at wire work and at knowing how to fix it and make it work when it might not.
Colin does an amazing stunt where he's running on the wall again, which is just awesome. I don't know how he does it.
You ever run down a hallway and you're just like, oh, it'd be so cool just to run up and around. This is what I get to do in this scene. And then after that, grab the people, shove them out a window, and ride a table to safety.
It's me actually on the table on wires, and then I jump backwards and then land on this green table. But then they play it forwards and it looks like I'm jumping onto this table and surfing out a window, which is awesome. The wind really helps you pretend that you're going fast, and you really kind of get into it. Then they have these huge fan cannons. They're just blowing massive amounts of compressed air in my face. One of the special effects guys has almost like a hose. It looks like a vacuum, but it's shooting out air.
He takes students and he throws them into the air. So in Quicksilver time, we'll see them go out 10 feet and freeze. So in the end, you see that several of them land in a pool, a group of them land into a curtain that he's set up like a big tarp. One guy wraps up in a mattress.
We have 9 people involved and 5 people flying. So each person has someone who's hitting the ratchet button and also someone belaying them in. Because once they get ratcheted, then they're up in space, and then we have to belay their lines in so that they can tumble down the curtains.
So we strengthen the curtain and it's made extra strong so it will support the kids, and then we have the kids start on a platform and be thrown into frame with the cables, and then once they hit the tarp, they're kind of let loose and they slide down like a giant slide.
Go! 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 Go!
I really have a lot of fun with this Quicksilver sequence. I think it turned out spectacular.
It's like this incredible potpourri of stuff. And in any given scene, there may be a piece that was an actor shooting, shot at 24 frames a second, but told to stand absolutely still. There may be a ball of fire that was shot at 4,000 frames a second. Can I do the math for that? Probably not.
It's a pretty elaborate process, and I think both really challenging, but also exactly what those guys love. I mean, that's the best possible assignment for those guys. They have a blast, and the footage from it is extraordinary.
He has the professor in the center of the pyramid. He's going to transfer his consciousness into the professor.
One thing that makes the film a bit unique is that the villain's agenda shifts in the middle. It shifts when Apocalypse discovers Charles Xavier.
Thank you for letting me in. The one power he's never come across is mind control. And for a megalomaniac who wants to dominate the entire world, it's a pretty attractive prospect. So he really desperately wants to get my body, also because, I mean, do you know what I mean?
Get out! Get out! Get out!
Can we get somebody in a green suit to shave his head and I'm standing by like this? We're gonna go right. That way.
This is Professor X's golf bucket. We call it the X-Bug.
Even though I only spend a little bit of the movie bald, we've still got to honour the iconic nature of his look. So I'm glad to be finally arriving at that destination with my head.
Patrick? Come in, man. Come.
They were saying, look, do you want to just wear a bald cap? And we thought, yeah, we could wear a bald cap, but bald caps always look bad, don't they?
It's connecting. So we go to a trailer, and then we FaceTime Patrick Stewart.
Patrick? It's Brian Singer and James McAvoy. We're about to shave James's hair.
This is the moment, pal.
And Patrick happened to be by his computer.
Why don't you save lots of it and send it to me? I can make some use of that.
So we hold my iPhone up so that Patrick Stewart can watch us, well, actually watch James shave his own head.
Oh, yes. Can we go for a mohawk? Thanks, baby.
And he sat there giving us his blessing and welcoming me to the Chrome Dome Club.
With every piece of hair that drops, my powers are increasing.
Have you ever done this before?
I have, actually, yeah, once before. but this is the first time I've done it sober.
It felt really right, and it was probably the moment where I felt like he was handing the baton over. He was like handing the clippers over to take my hair off.
You look terrific. How does it feel?
I'm finally understanding what it's like to be you.
What's the difference is that I looked like that when I was 19.
It was pretty cool.
Thank you for doing this. What a privilege.
It's lovely to see you, pal.
Thank you, Patrick. And
Thank you. Bye, guys. Be well.
All right.
I love you all.
Send this hair to Patrick Stewart.
The challenge of a third act of a film like this is when you have a supervillain, it's inevitably going to conclude with the good guys teaming up against the bad guy. So it's always a balancing act.
Not all of us can fully control our powers.
Then don't.
We took the battle as if it's two different groups. There's the younger kids, to Storm and Cyclops, and Nightcrawler are more the younger, inexperienced fighters. They're going to be more scared. And then you have the other end of it, Psylocke and Beast, who are the more experienced fighters, and so they are much more aggressive. They don't have the fear. It's more, how can I beat this person?
I always call this whole third act like a giant Eisenstein experiment. You end up with a whack-the-mole game of problems and where certain characters need to be. This is why we knocked Nightcrawler out, because for the whole third act, if he's around, he just bamf people endlessly.
We also do big stunts, of course. Storm throws a car with her winch. It flies over the head of Jean and Scott, and Beast catches it but gets slidden back. It's like a big, powerful moment. He throws it back at Storm.
To protect her, I jump and I slice through it with my psychic sword.
We are throwing a real car. A real car that's on a forklift is going to hit Beast and slide him back. There will also be CG elements of the car, like when Psylocke flips through and cuts it in half. That will be a CG car. But we have real pieces of a car that will fall to the ground and land next to Storm.
We found as the Beast-Psylocke fight wore on, it was becoming more and more of the same. And Brian Smrz suggested that we switch out her weapon, which allowed us to go to the psionic whip. But having the purple whip wrapped around Beast's neck at one point is just a nightmare for interactive lighting. So basically, NPC went in and placed the whip around his neck and then beautifully did all the highlights and all the interactive light through his fur and onto his face.
We had one scene where flung Olivia hundreds of feet into the air.
She's running off a building. She jumps off a building, reaches up, Angel flies and catches her, and then throws her a few hundred feet up to the jet.
Not since I flung Wolverine up to the torch of the Statue of Liberty have I flung an actor that high in the air as I did Olivia Munn.
All right, we did it. Now I'm gonna go throw up.
Okay, lock it up. Like it's headed to 1.
Magneto has encased himself in this enormous bubble of energy, and he's wreaking havoc on the world on behalf of Apocalypse.
I've created a vortex around myself, which is basically comprised of many tiny little metal components that is shredding everything near it into sort of rubble.
We've seen Magneto move stuff, but you've never actually manifested the magnetic field that's much bigger, that's being controlled from him in the center physically as opposed to just his hand.
As he was pulling this stuff out of the ground, it brought a lot of atmospherics and debris with it, and it was hard for people to know what was going on. We tried to add as much metal and recognizable metal debris in with his effect as we could.
Smrz! Come! Rescue your weaklings! Give your life for theirs!
We wanted to find a way to do more than have a physical battle, and part of it grew out of this notion of transference, right? The notion of a marrying or melding of minds.
I can get inside his head.
Will you do nothing?
Thank you for letting me in.
We've seen in this genre so much of people with extraordinary powers destroying familiar icons, and I think viewers today are less impressed with that than they maybe once were. So the mind battle takes what otherwise could be a punch 'em up into the psychological world.
There was actually meant to be a mind battle in First Class between me and Emma Frost, and it was all like slamming each other through walls and sort of into different realities and all that. And then Inception came out, and it was exactly what we had planned to do, and we went, we can't do that now. But we've finally been able to have a different kind of incarnation of it in this movie with Apocalypse.
We move into a distinctly different world, and it had to be distinctly different. And the limbo look was sort of what we decided on. It's simplified. It's the things that you might generate in your mind in terms of interpreting your environment by virtue of its simplest components.
We've got a brilliant director of photography in Tom Siegel, and it was an incredible opportunity for him to begin to sculpt something with light that isn't bound by reality. You get a lot of kind of overwhelming light and shadow, walking on ceilings, the use of space in completely unconventional ways because it is a virtual environment.
You want what I have? You want to feel what I feel?
Part of what intrigued me was the ability to sort of have this sort of psychological action moment within spaces that we had come to know in the movie, but in ways that we had never seen them before, so that you really could give a symbolic value, a metaphorical value to those spaces.
Welcome to my world.
I wanted to get physical in the mind battle with him. I just thought it'd be really cool to see Charles sort of rage, you know?
I love that it's an opportunity for us to see Professor X get in a fight because we've never seen that. Now he gets to be a regular guy fighting for his life and for his team's life.
There's been so many versions of Apocalypse. The most popular version is where he's at least 12 feet tall, 600, 700 pounds. So I think in order to honor that, it was important for me to have that be a moment in the movie.
Big Apocalypse was multiple motion control passes on Oscar and James McAvoy. So scaling the camera moves so it looked like Oscar was getting bigger and James was staying the same size.
If your camera was at 5 feet when you photographed Charles, what you do is you took the camera down to 1 foot when you photographed Oscar as Apocalypse, and that made him appropriately large relative to Charles. We had to put things in there that were recognizable, stairs and windows and doors and stuff, so that when Apocalypse did grow, it didn't just look like a trick of perspective.
And then we got into the fun stuff of Big Apocalypse beating up Charles.
Bryan Singer wanted Charles to be whipped like a rag doll. So we had wires going every which way. Every one of our riggers was doing something, pulling lines, pulling slack, pulling him into the floor. And it definitely was one of those rigs that we've never done before and had to figure out from scratch, which we love.
For me, it's one of the most exciting scenes in the film because it was a chance to do something that, you know, really stepped out of that box of third act event action movies.
Jean! Help me!
Say, don't be afraid, and then as you say, no fear, smile, and then raise your head and say, unleash your power. Ready? And action.
Unleash your power, Jean!
And cut. Thank you. Thank you, James. You're a prince. Xavier becomes nearly destroyed in his own mind, and he ultimately calls Jean and tells her, instead of control your power, as I've been teaching you, unleash all of it. For me, it was exciting because I got to do a little Phoenix action, and I didn't get to do X-Men 3, which told a piece of that story, and so here I get to do a little of that.
You will never win. And why is that? Because you are alone. And I am not.
The Phoenix moment was very cool. That was something we'd wanted to do for a long time, and Bryan was on board to basically just let us come up with something amazing.
Let go!
The Phoenix moment is great, and because it's so anticipated, you have to be careful. It has to be really good. People want to see it, so they're all kind of rooting for this moment to happen. There's a certain component of this that's like water simulation, which means the stuff interacts in a specific way. You can establish a viscosity, you can establish a cohesiveness, and it came out looking like something that was organic but supernatural.
The logistics behind making a film of this scope, it's a challenge, and a lot of times we're right up against the wall, but I'm lucky I got a team that have just tons of experience on both sides.
This is a big movie. With big movies, you have to think big. We think like there's zero limits.
out till 6 in the morning. Holy, wow, they're really gorgeous. I want to see it, get them out there into the light so I can get a full look at them in their glory. But they look they look great. They're beautiful. I mean, they look like X-Men.
I'm an X-Man. Yes, you are.
Ultimately, the film is about the formation of the X-Men, and at the end of the film, you get to see that in its glory, in the danger room, lined up in a row, in their full costumes, each with their own separate style, character, color scheme, and each exhibiting their own readiness to fight.
You're not kids anymore. You're not students. You're X-Men.
We're all there together training and fighting so that if something ever like this happens again, we're ready and we'll do it together.
It's pretty exciting, and everyone's getting ready to battle. And I've got lightning bolts coming out of me, and you got Scott over there, Jean's ready.
Just to be standing there and for Mystique to be pacing up and down, giving us advice and telling us that we are X-Men was another moment where it was like, geez, I'm doing an X-Men movie.
It's cool to imagine that Quicksilver would be with the rest of the gang in the beginning and a good guy fighting for good.
Mystique told me he is your father. Are you gonna tell him?
Might. One day. For now, I'm just gonna stick around here for a while.
What's nice about altering the timeline in Days of Future Past is we can go anywhere with these new X-Men characters.
The thing about X-Men that I think separates it from a lot of the other superhero movies is the emotional drive and the emotional content that is to be found within the relationships of the movie.
It's exciting what Simon Kinberg and Brian Singer and everyone have created in terms of the characters, how our characters have developed through the movies.
It's about growing up, it's about family, it's about togetherness, it's about acceptance. And all those things have been in all the X-Men movies, and that's what makes them so cool and so real.
You're sure I can't convince you to stay? You're psychic, Charles.
You can convince me to do anything.
I think the story continues, for sure, because we know that from the McKellen Magneto, and there's a whole sort of gap in between there. I've had a great time doing this. The role of Magneto has done wonderful things for me. I'm eternally grateful for having been given the opportunity, so I'm always open.
If they want to make more, I'll make them, yeah. I enjoy it. I love playing Charles. If he's in any way approaching as good a part as what I've had from the last 3 movies, then I'd be in like Flynn.
Goodbye, old friend.
Good luck, Professor.
The X-Men universe is every bit as large as the entire remaining Marvel universe. You can go anywhere. You could expand the X-Men into alien territory. There are other characters who travel through time, so you can go to any time you want. You can collide with Deadpool if you want. You can do all of that.
By no means is the saga over. There are more journeys to go on with these characters and with others, some that we haven't yet introduced, that we hope to.
It's not the end of a trilogy, really. It's a climax of 6 films, but it's also the birth of a new direction that the X-Men universe can travel in.